The Hulk is a monster created after Bruce Banner was bombarded with gamma rays, and this beast may be representative of two different things. One is sheer rage and the destruction that we leave behind when we act on anger, and the other is the concept of living with a personality you cannot control, or as it's known in psychology, dissociative identity disorder. So for the video today, we're going to look at the traditional Hulk as a representation of intermittent explosive disorder, also known as anger disorder, and also look at the lesser-known incarnations of the Hulk from the angle of multiple personalities. So first, traditional Hulk. With this simple classic Hulk, we can explore what intermittent explosive disorder really means to both the person involved and the people around them. First, let's look at what intermittent explosive disorder is. Symptoms of IED are broken down into separate categories, starting with behavioral symptoms. These symptoms are physical aggressiveness, verbal aggressiveness, angry outbursts, physically attacking people and/or objects, damaging property, and road rage. The next category are the physical symptoms: headaches, muscle tension, chest tightness, palpitations, tingling, feelings of pressure on the head, tremors, and then there are cognitive symptoms: low frustration tolerance, feeling a loss of control over one's thoughts, racing thoughts, and the psychosocial symptoms are feelings of rage, uncontrollable irritability, and brief periods of emotional detachment. Also, an interesting thing to look at for this is the risk factors involved in getting this disorder, meaning if you are or have any of these things, you are significantly more likely to get it. These are being male, exposure to violence at an early age, exposure to explosive behaviors at home, having experienced physical trauma, having experienced emotional trauma, having a history of substance abuse, and having certain medical conditions. So looking at these, let's check some things off about Bruce Banner and the Hulk. Well, clearly he's written and drawn as a male. Bruce also had an abusive alcoholic for a father who killed his mother right in front of him. So he's had violence and explosive behavior around him, and he's had to deal with that physical and emotional trauma as a child. So he has all sorts of risk factors. So now, looking back at the symptoms, obviously hulking out causes him to exhibit most of these behavioral and psychosocial symptoms, but we can also attribute the cognitive and physical symptoms to what happens to Bruce before he transforms. While naturally occurring cases of IED often manifest during the teenage years, there are cases that occur after some form of trauma to the brain or from PTSD in former soldiers. While not a soldier himself, Bruce was contracted by the military to make the G-bomb. It's a loose connection, but it's a connection. While he may not be directly on the battlefield, possibly killing people, the guilt may loom over him, knowing that his weapon will possibly even killing innocents. Anyway, the real incident we need to look at is the gamma rays that Bruce was hit with before he became the Hulk. Any old blast would have a concussive force, but instead of dying from it, Bruce was doused in gamma radiation and was hit with a massive concussive force. The force of that blast could have given Bruce brain damage that led to the first outburst of anger, which had been repressed for years in the first place. On the topic of the Hulk, though, we have some real symbolism to look at. When he hulks out, he loses the eloquence and intelligence of Banner. He is much more akin to a child than an adult with adequate train of thought, which kind of throws us back to how instances of IED are found more commonly in kids and teens. The Hulk is oftentimes trying to prove that he is stronger than his opponent over anything else. Kids throwing a tantrum for a toy or teens slamming doors and shouting because their parents tell them no is not too dissimilar to the argument Hulk is having with his enemies. He gets mad, and for better or worse, tries to get what he wants through shouting and violence. Banner, in this sense, plays two parts, both as the rational side of the kid or teen that knows that they know better, and the parent of the Hulk. Banner, in his human form, is the rational side who is willing to have a discussion. However, when he becomes the Hulk, Banner is shoved to the back of the brain. He tries to rationalize with an irrational force, becoming the parental figure to the Hulk. But the Hulk is also representative of the ugly side of all of us that we try to hide away from those around us. If that side gets the better of us, then it damages everything and everyone around. Another interesting point to take is that he becomes hyper-masculinized as the Hulk. Being male is a risk factor of IED. Not only males suffer from it, but the majority of the people with it are male. So, rage manifesting in such a form plays back into the disorder. And what triggers this beast inside of Banner? An explosion. Intermittent explosive disorder. It's in the name. The rage that sufferers feel is explosive, just like the Gamma Bomb. The Hulk, at least the classic version, destroys relationships around Banner, much in the way that the real victims of the disorder hurt those around them. They don't always mean to do what they do. In fact, sometimes they could even explode with righteous anger. Unfortunately, the strength they receive is unhinged and can only be aimed, and it may not hit the right target. Much like real sufferers, Banner constantly battles with depression and self-hatred for what he's done. Another issue Banner has is he doesn't want to become his father and end up hurting or killing someone he loves. This leads us to Betty Ross. Betty Ross is the love of Banner's life in the origin of the Hulk. Though missing from the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the most part, Betty represents the ideal partner for Banner. She's someone who keeps his demons at bay. She can calm the Hulk, at least in some stories, but ultimately she does succumb to a psychological breakdown due to dealing with Banner's part-time life as the Hulk. This is an issue that many people in the life of an IED sufferer face. They can't go through the stress of not knowing how to handle the explosive rage that happens seemingly randomly. It's exhausting trying to love and care for someone who causes you so much pain. In the case of Betty Ross, she does eventually marry Banner, and this, for a time, is good. However, the Hulk does reappear as a factor of turmoil in their relationship. This relationship would go back and forth for years, finally ending because Betty died due to gamma exposure since she had been with Banner for years. Though she eventually comes back and becomes Red She-Hulk and blah blah blah, comic book deaths are rarely permanent. But looking at the gamma exposure as a symbolic part of Betty's life, we can argue that it represents the stress of living with someone who has IED. That kind of stress can have horrible physical effects on the health of someone, even potentially leading to death. But anger isn't the only issue the Hulk represents as a character. He also represents people with dissociative identity disorder, commonly known as multiple personalities. Bruce Banner developed the identity of the Hulk in his mind during his abusive childhood, but this side of him was kept at bay for years because of Banner's complex mind. A complex mind that, along with the original Hulk, also developed the personalities of Joe Fixit, Professor Hulk, Doc Green, the Green Scar, and a few others. In order to explore the Hulk in terms of dissociative identity disorder, we have to look at the criteria or symptoms of the disease. First, 2 or more distinct identities. Secondly, amnesia must occur. Third, the person must be distressed by the disorder. 4, the disturbance is not a normal cultural or religious practice. And 5, the symptoms are not effects of substance usage. There are clearly 2 or more identities when you consider all the Hulk variations. Banner, in some interpretations, has vague memories, and in some, none at all. While not exactly amnesia, we can write this one up to creative liberties in the comics. Banner is often distressed by what he could have done as the Hulk, and he isolates himself as a result. While we have plenty of Hulks to look into, I want to look more so into how DID affects the sufferer and the people in their lives. Much like the anger trigger the Hulk has, DID can be triggered by a number of different environmental things, or even the state of the mind of the person at the time. Looking at DID, we can see that each personality can have drastically different mindsets, such as the cunning and hedonistic personality of Joe Fixit, or being a huge, naive, childlike rage beast like Savage Hulk. This can be very difficult to deal with when the sufferer doesn't know what one of his personalities has done. It makes it difficult to hold on to jobs and also relationships. Individual sufferers also report depersonalization, which is feeling like you have an out-of-body experience. They have identity confusion, not being certain as to who they are. Banner has to suffer with this to an extreme because when he swaps personalities, it could mean massive destruction and potentially hurting someone he loves. Much in the same way that IED takes form from childhood abuse, so can dissociative identity disorder, developing as a defense mechanism in order to protect the consciousness from the abuse. DID can first manifest in childhood, though is normally diagnosed in adulthood. Banner created the Hulk in his mind as a child to defend himself from abuse. though it chose to physically manifest itself after the gamma bomb allowed it to do so. Much in the vein of the Hulk, having different forms and sizes, real sufferers of DID can have physical differences between personalities, such as differing eyesight and allergic reactions. The brain is a pretty strange and powerful thing to be able to do that. Ugh. The Hulk, all in all, is an over-exaggerated version of what this disorder can be to people, though over-exaggerated to get the idea across more solidly. So, where does this leave us? What is the Hulk in terms of our own psyche? The Hulk and Bruce Banner represent not only the physical disorders presented, but also our fears as human beings. What if they won't like us if we're this way? What if I let my anger get the best of me? We often, as a species, struggle with who we are versus who we want to be. We hide our ugly and sometimes angry sides from the public because they aren't seen as favorable. But they are still parts of us, and we'll always have to deal with them. It's how we can channel our anger and our flaws that can make the difference for us. The Hulk is how we see ourselves at times, and Banner is our self-conscious anxiety that tells us that we're going to end up hulking out if we aren't careful. But remember, being you is who you are, and there is nothing wrong with that so long as you strive to continue advancing and bettering what makes you yourself. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if psychology is something that interests you, then here are a few other awesome psychology videos. This one is about the very interesting relationship between Rick and Morty, and this one here is about Harley Quinn and the psychology of domestic abuse. I hope you enjoy those too, and until next time, please remember to never stop using your noggin.